Welcome, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us today. We've got a really fun evening and some absolutely amazing experts here to join us tonight. My name's Jackie Lynch. I am a registered nutritional therapist. And what that means is that I work in clinic with people who are looking for basically a solution, a nutritional or diet and lifestyle solution, either to managing and supporting an ongoing medical condition, or perhaps taking a preventative approach to healthcare. My specialist area is women's health and the menopause, and pretty much everything I do is around the menopause. So this kind of event, talks and workshops. I also am the host of the Happy Menopause podcast. And these three brilliant women have actually already been my guests. It's a monthly show. And if you haven't seen it, you are missing out, because we've now had 450,000 downloads. This month's episodes were about magnesium, reflexology, and perimenopause FAQs. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't already come across it. And I'm also the author of this lovely book called The Happy Menopause, Smart Nutrition to Help You Flourish, which is basically a symptom-by-symptom guide to nutrition as you work your way through the menopause. Now, as well as our experts tonight, we have got an amazing prize draw coming up. And we've got a little slide here to show you what we've got there. Basically, simply by being here, all of you are automatically entered. So as long as you stay for the whole session, when the draw comes, you're going to be eligible. So I'd like to give a huge thank you, first of all, to Better You, one of my favorite supplement companies, who have donated a wonderful gift made up of all sorts of magnesium products. There's a sleep lotion, there's some gorgeous magnesium salts, there's a vitamin D spray, there's a B12 spray, all manner of wonderful goodies. And also to Pry Beauty, who've donated a massive amount of things, so that there's an opportunity for 10 of you to win things. There's 5 bundles, which include a collagen boosting cream gel moisturizer with a Cool Fix serum, and then another 5 bundles, which are a cream gel moisturizer and a wonderful sleep cream. So honestly, it's going to be great. My 2 books are up for grabs as well, The Right Bite and The Happy Menopause. And also Jess has put up her lovely book, The Super Helper Syndrome, a survival guide for compassionate people. Does that ring a bell, people? Because it's a really great book. So lots of reasons to stick around tonight, but most importantly of all, you need to stick around to listen to our great experts. So the first thing I would like to do is bring up Jess, Christine, and Libby. So there should be all 4 of us on the screen there. And I want to give you a brief introduction. So Jess Baker is chartered psychologist. She's going to be kicking off tonight talking to us about managing anxiety, dealing with issues around overwhelm, mood and mental health. We've then got Christine Bird, chartered physiotherapist, specialist in women's health, pelvic health specifically, and also co-founder of the brilliant Menopause Movement organisation. And then finishing off and really calming us all down, we've got Libby Stevenson, who is a menopause yoga specialist. So the way tonight is going to work is that we basically, each of them are going to have a 10-minute slot with me, a little Q&A that we're going to do together, talking about their specific area of expertise. And then after that, we're going to open up to a panel discussion. So pop your questions in the chat and we'll try and get to as many of them as we can. I've had a few sent in to me already in advance, which is really great. So I'll make sure that they get asked as well. And then at the end of it, we're going to do the prize draw. So make sure you stick around for that. Quick reminder to everyone that the session is being recorded, so it will be available for you further down the line. So you may wish to switch your camera off so that you're not being recorded for posterity and you can just relax in your living room and enjoy the evening. So that's how it's all going to work now. So without further ado, let's crack on with our first speaker. So can we pop up the intro slide to Jess? And there it is. So a little bit more information about Jess here. Jess Baker is a chartered psychologist, and she's also a women's leadership coach. And her role really, the way she perceives it, her mission is to help her clients build mental resilience and tackle imposter syndrome, which I'm sure is something that many of you have come across. As I mentioned, she's also the author of this absolutely fabulous book, Super Helper Syndrome, the survival guide for compassionate people. And really, I think she's just the woman we need to talk us through the whole issues around anxiety and overwhelm. So let's hear what she's got to say. Jess, thanks very much for
Hi.
joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Jackie. It's great to
Oh,
be
well,
here.
it's a great pleasure. So let's get straight into it because, anxiety, overwhelm, they're some of the most unrecognized symptoms of the menopause. And a lot of women struggle alone, not knowing quite what to do. So let's start with the basics. What is anxiety? What's overwhelm? What's going on in our brain when we experience those feelings?
Okay, so anxiety is a natural response to a situation or a relationship or a thought where we feel unsettled. We feel worried, we feel fearful or upset in some way, unstable. And ultimately, we need to remember that the brain is wired to protect us. So oftentimes we'll feel anxious when we are faced with a threat. If I'm about to step out from a curb into a road to cross the road, and all of a sudden a motorbike comes around the corner, screeches in front of me, I step back. Before I have time to think, oh, there's a motorbike coming really fast at me, it might knock me over. My body has reacted, my brain has reacted, my body has reacted, and I've stepped back out of safety. My brain is wired to protect me. It's seen a threat, an actual perceived, an actual threat, and it has responded to that to get me out of danger. So some anxiety can be helpful. In that scenario, various systems of the brain have been activated. The amygdala has been activated. In fact, we have two. They are small almond-shaped glands in the base of our brain. And they have sent messages to the brain and to the body to pump more oxygen and blood to the larger limbs for me to be able to fight or flee, the fight or flight scenario. And so in that way, it can be really useful. As I say, our brain is wired to protect us. But what can happen oftentimes is that something else might activate the same systems in the brain. So I might receive a call from a client, having just delivered what I thought was a brilliant 1 hour webinar. I receive a call from my client, and suddenly I think, oh my God, I've done something wrong. They're about to complain about something. Maybe I shouldn't have said this. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Suddenly, the same process is triggered, but from a very different activating event.
Yeah.
It's a perceived threat. And so, what happens a lot of the time, particularly during perimenopause and menopause, because of the shift in hormones, and we'll talk about that as well a little bit, is that I am feeling the response, I'm feeling anxious, and I think I'm feeling anxious because of the phone call. But I'm not. I'm feeling anxious because of the thoughts I'm having about the phone call. So there's a little bit of unpacking here to do. And as a psychologist, I'll get there. I think within the next 10 minutes, I think we'll get to unpacking the irrational beliefs and some of the thoughts we hold. But if we stay with anxiety for the moment, that's the thing that makes us feel tense, upset, worried. Our heart beats faster. It's in that zone of, right, what can I do now? So some anxiety can be good. Some anxiety and stress can help us perform at our ultimate. But if that anxiety continues, if it's prolonged anxiety, if I feel I have no control over my environment, have no control over how I feel, my hormones are haywire and everything in my life feels out of control, that's when we can slip into overwhelm.
Yeah.
So I feel like um, if I can explain overwhelm as a longer term experience of anxiety or stress and those negative experiences where we ultimately end up shutting down and we feel, we've talked about brain fog before, or we might have thoughts about, or we might have hear about cognitive overload. Those are forms of overwhelm when I feel like I can't do anything. I have no idea what to do next.
Yeah.
I
You're
just
almost
cannot see the wood for
paralyzed.
the trees. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And of course, women in midlife, we are juggling so many different things. And that's even before you think about what's going on with menopause and the impact of hormones on our brain and our mental health in particular. It's not really surprising that we feel overwhelmed, I think. But what can we do about it? Can you give us some help, some strategies?
Yes. So, first of all, there's a little system I want to introduce today, and it's called the approach versus the avoidance mindset. And I think this is quite nice because it ties in some of the neuroscience, but it also is quite a practical thing for us to be able to do in the moment. because that's what we need to be able to do. It's in the moment, again and again and again. The more we practice this stuff, the better we are in every single moment at managing those anxious thoughts, that rumination or the inability to sleep. So if we take the avoidance approach is the natural approach, okay? So we might think, oh, but I see myself as superwoman. I can cope with anything. I'll just carry on. Or, okay, I'm feeling tired and I'm exhausted, but I'll just push on through. I'll just do this and this and this. And we deny our experience of anxiety or sleep deprivation. We deny that, we resist it. We don't want to acknowledge that that's how we really feel for a multitude of reasons, okay? That's the avoidance system in action. And that's our right prefrontal cortex in the systems of the brain, basically saying, we want to avoid that really bad thing. That's why we end up doing self-sabotaging behaviors or procrastination. We're like, I want to avoid that. I don't want to deal with it. I'll pretend it's gone. Instead, what we want to do is switch flick the switch, if you like, over to the approach mindset. And this is the left prefrontal cortex. Okay, so systems here are activated when we are curious, when we're interested, when we get closer to a theme. Rather than avoiding it, we're actually saying, what am I feeling? How am I feeling this? What actually is happening in my body right now? Okay, I can feel my heart. And then we can say, how do you logically interpret those sensations? If I'm curious first, I could say, what am I feeling? Why do I think I'm feeling any of that? Well, maybe I just had my third coffee. That's why I've got palpitations, or whatever it might be. We can choose to interpret those physiological experiences as well. Or we can just say, well, of course I'm worried. Anyone in this situation will be worried. And that's why I'm worried about this thing. And I'm going to have a number of sleepless nights until it's resolved. Okay, well, what else can I do to support myself? So I wanted to introduce that system. That moving into approach system is really interesting here because it's almost the basis of a mindfulness approach. Because what we're doing here is acknowledging that we can't feel, or at least it's incredibly difficult to feel, curious and anxious at the same time. So we're choosing curiosity over anxiety. So that would be one of the first things I've got to say, but I don't know how much time I've got.
A couple more minutes.
Okay, great. So I'll stay away from being in the body because I know we're going to cover that, and the experts are here to share what they're going to say about the physiology and movement and things. So that would also be in my toolkit. But let's talk about maybe thinking about boundaries. One of my favorite subjects, it's in the book. How do we learn to manage anxiety or overwhelm by being able to push back? Now, often it's impossible to say no. Impossible to say no to your boss because you work for them. It's impossible to say no to your children because you want to do the right thing by them. It's impossible to say no to requests for help because you feel like you're the one who should be helping. So boundaries essentially they protect you, they protect your needs, but they also protect other people. And if you find yourself experiencing anxiety or overwhelm because you're doing too much, because you're taking on more than you can cope with, first acknowledge that that's happening. Okay, I'm acknowledging I am taking on too much. I can't say yes to everything. As much as I see myself as a compassionate person, I actually have limits. I'm exhausted and my energy is depleted and I need to do something different. So we need to look after our own needs. And in fact, what we know is that if you're looking after your own needs, if you are replenishing your own levels of energy, you've got more to give. So the boundaries will help by, let's say, for example, choosing and using helping here as the example, given that's the theme you mentioned in my book as well. If you are finding that you're doing lots of things for different people, you might be able to consciously decide who do you want to help, when do you want to help them, and how do you want to help them. And that might be, I choose to help people in my close network, people in my family, but I'm not going to choose that I'm not going to help that random person who keeps coming at me with requests for help and I don't ever seem to get anything back. And the resentment seems to be building. Or it might be, when are you choosing to help? My mother used to phone me 5 times a day and I'd say, Mum, can we just talk on Sunday for half an hour? You can have my full attention, but please don't phone me 5 times a day. And then how are you helping? Well, what kind of help are you doing? Are you the kind of person jumping in to fix their whole problem? When you could be saying, I can give you 5 minutes now, download it all and I'll just be a listening ear. Or I can do this for you, but I'm not going to go the whole hog and solve the whole problem. I can find some links for you or some resources for you to support you in this issue. but I'm not going to jump in as I might have done before to solve the whole problem.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing from this is that one of the things that we often do as we fall down with perhaps is that we're so used to doing everything and coping with everything that we just put our heads down and sort of try and bulldoze through, because that's the only way we can just keep going, keep going, keep going. And what we actually need to do is lift our head up, see what's ahead of us, and actually think, well no.
Yes, and importantly, Jackie, thank you for reminding me, ask for help. Ask for help. Often we see ourselves as the provider of help, the supporter, the enabler of other people, and we ignore, deny, resist the fact that we have needs too.
Yeah.
You know, and I think asking for help, there is such strength in them. Often people like to help. People are generally probably in your circle like you, and they want to be able to help you. But if you're not saying what your needs are, they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So I think, thanks for the reminder. It is about being brave enough to say, actually, do you know what? I'm not coping really well right now. And choosing who you tell that to, obviously, but say, and I need some support, and then go find support, listen to a podcast, read a book.
Great. There's loads there we could unpick. So we're going to come back to a lot of that in the panel session with the questions. So if people have got questions about that or thinking, well, that sounds good, but how do I deal with X, Y, and Z? Pop it in the chat. Jess might add a few things in the chat for you if that's relevant. If not, we're going to talk about it when we get to the Q&A. So brilliant. Thank you very, very much. Yes, I can see someone saying we might need another event on asking for help. It's so difficult to ask for help. So Jess, start to think about, how we can go about doing that, because that might be some stuff we can pick up on in a little while. So next slide I'd like to pop up now is the introduction to Christine slide. Christine is my menopause buddy. Honestly, we've shared so many workshops together over the years, and we've been talking about menopause since long before it was fashionable. So Christine is a chartered pelvic health physio. She's founder of the excellent multidisciplinary White Hart Clinic in southwest London. And she's honestly helped countless of women deal with issues around urinary stress incontinence, leaking, pelvic health issues generally. But she's also the co-founder of Menopause Movement, which is this rather brilliant online community which provides multidisciplinary training to health and fitness professionals who are looking to support women during the menopause, so they can give the right, appropriate, and really expert level of support that we midlife women need and deserve. So welcome, Christine. Thank you very much for joining me again.
Hi, buddy.
Here we are again.
That's right.
Questions for you. We're obviously, when we're chatting to you, we're going to be talking about the body side of things, being in our body, as Jess just mentioned, actually. So first question I have for you, really simple one. Why does exercise make us happy?
Yeah, great question that is. And Jess, that was amazing. So full disclosure, I love exercising myself. I'm kind of hooked. And that's how I manage some of my overwhelm experience, like what Jess has just been talking about. I love to run, swim, do strength training and yoga. So very much looking forward to listening to Libby in a moment as well. It very much is my happy drug. So in our course, my favorite part of the course is really brain and movement. So if I get too geeky about it, do stop me, Jackie. But I know you're good.
I will.
I know you're good at keeping me in check. So really what happens when you move is not just about happy chemicals. The whole psychological effect of movement, you can't just reduce it to a simple endorphin rush. So regular exercise also does something to your brains. It remodels the physical structure of your brains, and it allows you to be more receptive to joy and social connection. So it really is quite a super drug in that way. So these neurological changes are often much more effective than most cutting-edge treatments for both depression, addiction, and anxiety. So the mind-altering effects of exercise are embedded very much into our muscles. So during exercise, muscles secrete hormones into your bloodstream that make your brain more resilient to stress. And scientists actually now have got a name for these molecules. They call them hope molecules.
I love that. Hope.
I know, hope molecules is great, isn't it? And when I say movement, I mean any movement. But to me, in my books, anyone who moves is an athlete, basically. So
we don't have to run 5 miles a day to get this hope molecule.
Absolutely, absolutely not. So if you look at the evidence, it's actually not that hard to conclude that our entire physiology was engineered to reward us to move. And all of that with those hope molecules in your brain, the sort of orchestrating pleasure, all goes back to the one really basic thing, and that's survival of the human species. So as humans, we are wired to take pleasure in activities, to experience that mental state that helps us to survive. So they're so deeply buried deeply into our DNA, and they spring to life potentially in all of us, even although sometimes when you need to go out for a run, it can be quite hard to find, I have to say. So it's just as fundamental to survival as breathing, digesting foods, and pumping blood to our muscles as well.
I think it's really important to remember that and not just think that it's about strength and flexibility, which is great. We need that, of course. Yep. I'm not saying it's not important, but it has a much broader role. And of course, as we go through menopause, it can make a real difference. So is there any specific research around sort of menopause and movement specifically?
Yeah, we can keep that really short. But what I sort of like to sort of finish that off with was what you were just hinting towards as well, that the reason it's so embedded in us is really that all those feel-good hormones were very much to encourage our ancestors to cooperate, share the spoil of their hunts. And so all these survival things around sort of pleasure and desire are very much based around movement rewards. Yes, so the research, I'll be really brief.
No worries. You've got time. You're doing really well.
in the research, there's a large amount of very strong evidence from randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis that show that increased levels of physical activities reduce low mood and depressive symptoms, as well as improve anxiety and quality of life. So a scientist of research has looked at low to moderate, high intensity physical activity, as well as resistance, strength training, and mind-body disciplines like yoga and Pilates. And the evidence is so clear. It's a no-brainer. Exercise works and it helps mood. And all type of exercise works. The sort of research does show that in terms of the menopause and quality of life for the menopause, the highest scores in terms of improvement of mood were with higher level of physical activities. And these are often things that women prefer to avoid, like strength training and high interval training. Although I have to say, and I'm sure Libby will talk about that more, the evidence around even something as simple as breathing is very, very powerful impact on our mental health as well.
Okay, so interestingly, I just saw something pop up in the chat, which is very linked to the next thing I was going to talk to you about, because I think, you know, most of us know we should be exercising more. Whether or not we do it is another thing. And it's something I see in my nutrition clinic a lot. I ask, well, what exercise are you doing? And they come out with this fabulous thing. And they say, well, I don't actually do that. That's what I aim to do, but don't do. So what are the barriers? What are the main barriers to us exercising as we should be? Or I shouldn't even use the word exercise, to moving.
Move, absolutely. Well, for the more reluctant exercise under us, there is some good news, because especially into the menopause, rest and recovery and exercise that you leave out really matter as well. So that's... let's put that, particularly sleep. So with declining estrogen, which is anabolic, and anabolic is about muscle rebuilding, healing, repair, we do need more recovery. So absolutely give yourself permission to sleep and recover as well, because adaptations to your training and getting fit actually happens while you're recovering. It doesn't happen while you're exercises. So you really don't want to miss out on that adaptation if you put all that effort into doing some exercise. So really what will help women into the menopause is shift their training slightly to resistance training and slightly higher intensity training. Because we have this accelerated loss of muscle mass, and we really need to maintain that muscle mass for bone health and all other aspects of health as well. Although it's still important that we also keep building that engine. But in terms of the barriers to exercise, the women in sport research is really worth looking at, that Women in Sports website and find out. But what really always breaks my heart, that fear of judgment, shame, and lack of confidence and not having enough time are a mix of sort of practical and emotional pressures that women feel that stops them from exercises. On the plus side, women at that stage in their life, they really want to feel good. And the desire to exercise is absolutely there. And that's such a good start. So even if just the desire is there, it's a great start. The other thing that stops a lot of women is just because they don't feel fit enough. And that's to go to a gym, to do, and that is obviously a bit of a catch-22 as well. But Women in Sport did find, in terms of how to get women over the hump, a lot of it is about fun and social connection. Start going out for a walk with your friends, get a buddy system, anything that you can do that will motivate you, because doing that by yourself is very, very hard. And it's so much more fun to do it with other, and find a judgment-free space. And it's not all about going out for a run or going to the gym. It's walking, there's badminton, there's so many different things. There's now walking football, walking rugby. There's so many different things to do. I think there's something out there for most.
Yeah, I saw someone pop in the chat a minute ago that they've found a dance group. And again, dance is a really, really good thing to be thinking about. So different things, go and see ABBA Voyage, because you'll be dancing all night to ABBA songs and you won't even realize quite how much exercise you're having. And one last thing I'd probably say as well is that somebody mentioned a minute ago, I'm just too tired. And counterintuitive though it is, the research is quite clear. If you're tired, get up and move, because you will feel less tired. You don't have to run 5 miles. You don't have to do a really scary spin class. Just going for a walk around the block or having a quick dance to the radio in the kitchen, it will actually reactivate everything so that, you're not so tired.
Absolutely. And it will make you sleep better, and it will help your feeling of overwhelm and anxiety. So it ticks so many boxes, and it definitely will make you feel better as long as you can get out of the door, or even come home and just do a couple of jumps in the front garden before you get in, or dance around the kitchen for 5 minutes. It's all movement. Really, the simple thing about movement is that doing a little bit is better than nothing. And doing more, of course, is better than less. But really, that little bit is already so much better than nothing. And that's where the biggest bit of benefit is as well.
And there's that saying, isn't there? The longest journey starts with a single step. You don't have to go from 0 to 60 straight away. I saw that someone popped in a mention about issues around pelvic floor weakness, and we're going to address that in the questions. So
absolutely,
get your best answer ready for that, Christine, because
absolutely, because that's a main barrier. That's a main barrier as well, and that nearly can always get sorted. So we'll definitely come back to that question.
We'll definitely come back to that. Well, brilliant. Thank you. You packed in so much into your 10 minutes. So thank you very much for that. And we'll come back to you soon for the questions. So it's now over to Libby. So Libby Stevenson, the next person up speaking, she is a yoga instructor and therapeutic wellbeing practitioner for women. And her special interest is very much midlife and the menopause. Her own journey of discovery into yoga actually is what inspired her to train as an instructor. It's a very impressive story. I've done a whole podcast with Libby about yoga, which you can check out. And so that's actually inspired her to get specialist certification in a number of areas that she's passionate about, but specifically the menopause. So we're here today to talk about, in fact, she's joining us from her holiday over in Canada. So thank you very much for joining us, Libby. Let's crack on.
My pleasure.
Here she is. So first question straight away. How can yoga help my mood and mental health?
Yeah. Well, I want to start by saying that I started doing yoga in my 50s. So if anyone watching this is thinking, oh, I'm too old for that, I should have started years ago. I started in my 50s and became a yoga teacher in my late 50s. So it's never too late. And I noticed the benefits to both physical and mental. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And that's what led me to becoming a yoga teacher. But tonight we're talking about anxiety and how yoga can help with that. And I thought before we talked about how yoga can help us manage anxiety, I would talk just very briefly about how the impact of anxiety on the body, and then how different aspects of yoga can help with that. So when we experience anxiety, the first thing that happens is that the body secretes this hormone called cortisol throughout the body, which is our fight-flight hormone. And that prepares the body for battle. And if you've ever experienced anxiety before, I'm going to mention some things that the body does in reaction to cortisol that maybe you've noticed. And if you haven't, then maybe the next time you experience anxiety, you'll be more mindful of them. So when we experience anxiety, what happens is we clench our jaw, lift our shoulders, roll the body forward. We feel hot. Our breathing, some people stop breathing completely for a bit, and then the breathing becomes very fast and shallow. Our hands become fists, and the mind gets involved too. So we get a lot of thoughts in our head, ruminating. Jess mentioned this. We start ruminating. We start thinking doom and gloom. So the whole body reacts when we're in an anxious state. And yoga is a holistic form of movement. So every part of the body gets involved. And as a result, it affects every part of the body because all those parts of the body are involved, and yoga can help with that. So I thought I would break yoga down into its individual parts to explain a little bit better how it can help all the systems of the body when we're feeling anxious. Well, if we start with what we think of when we think of yoga, we think of movement. Okay, so let's start with that. And the movements in yoga are slow and gentle, and we do them in combination with the breath. So it's very meditative. The movements in yoga are very meditative. Also in yoga, there's a lot of stillness. We get into a pose and we just stay there. Or we're balancing in yoga, okay? So when we're doing the movements, whether stillness or a balancing, there's a meditative quality to those movements. When we're doing those movements, we're constantly reassessing where we are in space, our alignment, how we feel, what we feel, where we feel it. So there's really not much time to get caught up in those ruminating thoughts. It gives us the space from the thoughts. The other thing about being in this meditative state, whether we're moving or in stillness, is that studies have shown that meditation and these meditative movements strengthen the part of the brain that deals with logical reasoning and decision making, so the frontal lobe, and it quiets the part of the brain that is instinctual, action reaction, the reptilian part of the brain that comes online when we're anxious. So we're doing ourselves some good by quieting that part of the brain and strengthening, the logical part of the brain. Meditation itself lowers cortisol and boosts the feel-good hormones, the serotonin and the endorphins. And as if that wasn't enough, when we're meditating, and by meditating, I'm talking about when we're still sitting with our eyes closed, that kind of meditation. When we're in meditation, we're constantly aware of what's happening in the mind, the thoughts that pop up, how we're feeling in the body. It's just constant awareness. It's a training of awareness. So much so that when we're not meditating and we're off the mat, we then become aware of the thoughts popping up in our head, and the fact that our breathing is getting quicker, and the fact that we're feeling hot, and the fact that we're, holding our hands as fists. And this is really helpful because when you're feeling anxious, if you can start recognizing the signals your body is giving you that you're becoming anxious, then you can step in with a breathing technique or whatever it is that you need in that moment. And just had some suggestions. You can step in, do something about it before it becomes a full-blown anxiety attack. So that's with the meditation. Then in yoga, of course, there's breathing techniques, and most of the breathing techniques are calming. And the breath is that switch that takes you from fight, flight, which we experience in anxiety, to rest and digest, to calmness. But the other thing with the breathing is that when we breathe in yoga, and I do have one planned for tonight, we're breathing more efficiently. So we're getting more oxygen into the body. And when we get more oxygen into the body and into the brain, we can think more clearly, because when we're anxious, we've got that muddled mind, don't we? There's all these thoughts going in our head and we can't think straight. But if we we use the breathing technique. Not only is it calming, but it's getting more oxygen to the brain, and it can help to lift that foggy brain that we experience.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because one of the things that personally I love about yoga is that, yes, you have the moments where you're sitting down quietly and you're doing the pranayama, the breathing and the meditation, but you're also breathing very steadily throughout.
Yeah.
And for those people who sort of think that meditation's a step too far for them, it's a great way to be getting all that oxygen inside you in a meditative way without actually doing something that you might find a bit scary initially.
Yeah. And I have to say, yoga classes incorporate all those elements, including philosophy. And the main philosophy in yoga is this whole idea of non-attachment and letting go. And depending on your history of anxiety, having a different perspective on life can help you. But not everything is suitable for everyone. So what I say is, if you're thinking about starting yoga, you can just do breath work, or you can just do meditation, or you can just learn the philosophy. There's something for everyone, and it will help with anxiety.
Brilliant. Well, I've got a couple of questions that have come through about that we'll cover in the panel. But let's get to the practical bits.
Okay,
can you
perfect.
share some examples of either different poses or exercises that we can do to help manage anxiety and overwhelm?
Well, one of the things that they say is we embody our feelings. So when we're feeling anxious, I explained how the body reacts, and there's this whole curling forward. When we're feeling sad, same thing. So we can use a yoga pose to uncurl the body. And if there's a connection between, feelings and mental state, then surely we can use the body to change our feelings. It can go the other way too. So you're probably all sitting. So why don't we do a seated mountain pose? And to do that, I'll ask everyone to uncross their legs. Do not have your feet crossed at the ankles. So you want to have your feet flat on the floor. You can even remove your shoes, make it even luxurious, and place a cushion under your feet. But your feet are flat on the floor. And then I want you to shift your hips way back in the seat, where the back of the seat meets the seat of the chair. So you're shifting your hips all the way back, and then bring your shoulders back and down. And you might feel, depending on the height of the chair behind you on your shoulder blades. And we're going to keep that chest lifted and the shoulders back, and the chin is parallel to your seat, and your hands are on your lap, palms up or palms down. It doesn't really matter. So this is seated mountain pose. And already, don't you feel a bit more uplifted? Okay. So we start with seated mountain pose to change the way we feel and make us feel better. The second thing we're going to do is a breathing technique, which is really easy to remember. I didn't want to explain anything too complicated, because then if you can't remember it, it's useless. So this is a breathing technique you can do seated, standing, lying down. I've done it on the London Tube. Nobody will notice. It's called golden thread breath. And we inhale through the nose, we exhale through the mouth. And the way we exhale through the mouth is we place a tiny gap between our lips and our teeth. And it's a tiny gap enough for a sheet of paper to go through. And it looks something like this. I can barely see that. My teeth are parted, my lips are parted. Okay, so we start with the mouth closed. We take an inhale through the nose, and then you breathe out through the tiny gap between your teeth and your lips. You might hear a sound, and it's called golden thread breath, because that breath leaving your lips feels like golden thread. And what it does is we inhale through the nose. So let's just do a few more while I speak. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the thin gap between your teeth and your lips. And what it's doing is we are slowing down that exhalation. And it's this, slowing down the exhalation, which brings the body to a state of calm. So whenever you're feeling anxious, if you can't remember what else to do, if you just do this breathing technique, it'll make you feel calmer. And hopefully you feel calmer having done that.
I do. And the great thing about that is
there you go. And you know what? You can do it. Yeah, and you can do it as often as you want throughout the day. It's just very calming and relaxing. Like I said, I've even done it on the London Tube. And nobody can see you doing that, because that part between your lips is very small.
Brilliant. Great. Oh,
I even have a short meditation if there's time for that. Perfect.
Tell us what it is, and then
Oh, it's a heart meditation, and it's literally just placing our hands on our heart and just bringing awareness to the hands and to the beating of the heart. And sometimes, people think meditation, you have to do it for 20 minutes, but actually something really simple, and practical, it makes more sense if, if we're busy.
I'm going to say, hold that for your final message. Let's do the heart meditation right towards the end, just before we have
perfect.
the prize draw, because I think that would be a great way to wrap up. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Libby. That was absolutely fascinating. So
my pleasure.
We're going to bring everybody else in now and check out some of the questions that have come through. So hopefully Jess and Christine will join us now. Here we are. Great. Okay, I've got a couple of questions that came in advance. So while I'm waiting for things to come into the chat, I'm going to start with you, Jess. I've got a question here which says, my mood is all over the place at the moment. Have you got any advice to just sort of settle me down?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm assuming that you might be doing some kind of doing some kind of hormonal therapy, or working with your natural rhythms and your natural cycle, because then then you can plug in the psychological bit. Really, I think it helps to plug in this tip once you're trying a number of other things. We've talked about this kind of holistic way of dealing with the mind and the body, and I think it's really important that you choose what's right for you. For me, it's about noticing what's going on. If you can notice it, you can then choose how you interpret that. Let's talk about the anxiety example that we mentioned earlier. If I notice that my heart is beating faster, I can then, as Libby was saying, I can then check in with my prefrontal lobe. I can then think logically, why am I feeling so anxious? Is there a reason for me feeling so anxious at the moment? Or is there a reason for me to feel sad? And maybe it's hormones, and that's a really good reason. That's a really good enough reason. But you say, okay, it's my hormones. How can I respond to that? And then it's about choosing how you respond. Now, this is really, really difficult, and I am not going to stand here as a psychologist and say I do everything all the time. I'm going through perimenopause, and sometimes it is hellish, I will say to you. But I have loads of tools in my box, and I think one of those I do is meditations. Really help, really helps to understand what I'm experiencing. But then for me, the important part is to, once I've noticed what's going on, to bring a bucket load of self-compassion to that. And I mean a bucket load. As much love as I would give someone else, my best friend in the whole wide world, and I would say, oh my God, I want to hug you right now. I want to tell you it's all going to be okay. It is okay. It's fundamentally all right,
Yeah.
You need to bring that to yourself.
You're talking to yourself as you would to your very dear friend.
And you're feeling it, it's beyond talking, Jackie. Like, as I'm saying it now, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm like, I'm experiencing this amazing amount of love and compassion that I have for whoever comes to mind. And I'm thinking, I want to turn that to myself. I mean, I have a little 15-second half hug meditation if there's time for that as well. So I think the self-compassion part is really important, because we need to be able to do that. We're so good at looking after others. We're so good at focusing on how others are feeling, what their needs are. And if we can bring this love and tenderness to ourselves and say, you know what, it's a bit rubbish right now. My mood is low. There's not very much I can do maybe in this moment, because it just sucks. But I want to bring a sense of compassion to that suckiness.
Yeah.
Well,
I think someone's just mentioned in the chat that they suffer with intrusive thoughts and anxiety, particularly at 4 a.m. when they can't sleep. So why don't you give us the 15-second half hug now? Because I think that will really help that person.
Yeah. So if you would like to join me, I'd like to invite you to place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And you're going to breathe in deeply 3 times. As you breathe, you feel the belly rise. As you breathe out, you feel the belly fall. Okay. Feel the gentle pressure of your hands resting here. Mine are really warm right now, so I can feel a lot of warmth in my hands, on my heart and on my belly. Bring to this half hug all the gentle love, care, and tenderness that you would if you were hugging one of the people most dear to you in this world. I'm just going to bring that person to mind right now, and I'm going to imagine embracing them. And maybe she's feeling how I'm feeling, and I just want to tell her, it's okay. Hold yourself in this safe, secure embrace for another 15 seconds or 3 more breaths. Really feel it. This is the half hug. You can do it anywhere, anytime, any place, to reconnect with yourself, to bring calmness when you feel anxious, to reassure yourself in times of self-doubt. It only takes a few moments. So thank you for joining me in that one.
Thank you. That's perfect. And I think the person who's struggling with intrusive thoughts might find that really helpful. I've seen a really interesting one that's just popped up, actually, which I think, Christine, I'd like you to address, which is, I have a chronic illness, so can't exercise for the ideal amount of time. I've been doing very short periods of exercising, a few reps, a few minutes apart, exercise bands, small weights, and maybe 20 minutes of seated or lying yoga most days. Will these small amounts have any impact on anxiety and mood?
If you look at the evidence, absolutely yes. And actually, there have been some really nice studies on what they call exercise snacking. So really short bursts. And actually, some of your bursts aren't even that short. It sounds like you're already doing more than most people. So congratulations. That's amazing.
I thought
that. So yes, short bursts of exercises are really worth it. So absolutely everything counts. And actually, exercise snacking seem to, especially for strength training, seem to be a nice, effective way and often easy for us to fit in. And especially now, a lot of us are working from home as well. You know, people, they might just run up and down to the shed or just down the road, or maybe if you can jump, do a few star jumps or something more gentle, or a downward dog or a child post. It doesn't really matter what you do, but high, especially if it's of slightly higher intensity and something that elevates your heart rate a little bit, exercise snacking works. But I think it sounds like you're doing fantastically well already.
Brilliant. Yeah, I must say, when I read out all the things you were doing, I was thinking, gosh, maybe I should be doing a bit more. So brilliant. And I love the notion of exercise snacking. That's just, it's so reassuring to know that you don't have to sort of do large amounts all the time. You can do little bits here and there, and it will make a big difference. Now, Libby, I want to ask a question for you from all those beginners out there. I saw something in the chat and also something that came in earlier. So to sort of combine the two questions, the first thing is that sometimes if you're new to yoga or you've never done it, there's lots of different types of yoga with funny names. And it might be very difficult for someone to know quite where to start if they're lacking confidence and worried about that. And for someone who's looking to get started, I think the question in the chat was, well, what resource, where do I go and how do I go about it? So have you got any advice there?
Definitely. And actually, I would say online is brilliant. There's a very popular yoga teacher known as Yoga with Adrienne. And she has some very good classes that are, 10 minutes, 15 minutes for beginners, more experienced. But the thing with doing yoga online, if you don't know where to start, you can start with that, is that you can do it from the comfort of your home. You can do it with the video off, and you can build your confidence such that you start at home. And then once you've got your confidence, you can go into a yoga studio and experience a live class. So I would start with online. And if you know of a yoga teacher in your neighborhood who does online classes, then perhaps, do the same, go to those online classes with that yoga teacher in your neighborhood, but keep your video off until you build your confidence. And then you can join her classes in person and meet the other people. Right. Yoga with Adrienne. Yeah. She's got millions of followers for a reason.
Yeah, she is absolutely great. And one of the good things about her is that there's something for pretty much anything you might be looking to target, and also very short ones. So you can do like a 10-minute yoga session. You don't have to do a full-on 90-minute Ashtanga if you're thinking, A, I have no idea what that is, and B, that's too much for me. So it's really good, actually.
Yeah.
And
but
yes,
if you did want to
I'm
go,
a big fan of Benji as well. I just saw Benji mentioned in the chat.
But if anyone did want to go into an in-person yoga class and doesn't know where to start, let the yoga studio know you're a beginner, and they will advise you as to which classes are most suited for you. That's probably the best way to do it, because they all have different names. And some classes could be challenging, but a beginner class could be okay. So if you call the yoga studios and you say you're a beginner and what should you start with, I'm sure they can advise you.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant advice. And I've just seen that Jess has posted some information about tame your inner critic. Is that what you were about to say, Jess?
I wasn't actually. I was going to talk about the word shame because that's come up a few times, and I wonder, and that's linked to asking for help as well, and that's linked to physical movement, and that's linked to whether we get the help that we want. And I think it's really important to note that shame needs secrecy to survive. When we feel shame, we feel less than, we feel broken, we feel flawed, we feel all the things that our inner critic wants us to feel. We feel all the things that naturally we feel when we're going through perimenopause and menopause because of the changes in hormones, our cortisol going haywire, our adrenaline. We're not getting as much testosterone perhaps as we're used to having. And I think through these transitions, sometimes we get a symptom and we think, oh, I don't want to tell anyone about that. Or we experience a thought, oh, I don't want to tell anyone about that. It's a bit embarrassing. Or, oh, well, everyone else seems to be able to cope. And I think what we really need to be doing is talking about this. So, Jackie, I think your podcast is brilliant. This is a fantastic setting to be able to have this conversation. But find somebody in your life, whether it's just one person who maybe is the same age as you, and maybe they might be wanting to share something with you, but they don't know why either. Have this conversation, start the conversation, say, oh, I was watching this podcast and it was really good. I was watching this webinar. I also have pelvic floor muscle problems, or I also have anxiety and I have no idea. And I also wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, but I have no idea who to talk to or what to do about that. Because once you've broken that bubble of shame, I call it shame sharing, it then expands and the shame dissipates and the confidence expands, and you can then go, oh, hallelujah, it's not just me suffering in the corner, in a dark corner. No, there are millions of us out there probably experiencing exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And most of us are going to know that moment that we've had where you sort of suddenly admit something to a close friend, not necessarily about health, it could be anything. And they suddenly say, oh, yeah, I know that. And you laugh together about it because you've both experienced whatever it might be. And that's that shame bubble sort of exploding. And suddenly it doesn't feel so dreadful that you think you made a fool of yourself in whatever situation it was, because actually probably nobody noticed. I think the thing always to remember is that most people aren't that observant and they aren't that interested in what other people are doing, because most people are quite focused on themselves. So a lot of the time people aren't really noticing what you're up to. And I think just relax a bit more would be, a good thing.
And I think that plugs into the question earlier. Sorry, Jackie, just say one last thing. How do we ask for help? And I think acknowledge that we need help is the first important thing. And then find someone you trust and love and respect, who loves and trusts and respects you, to say, I think I need help. I don't know where to look. If you're not the right person, who do you think can help? Can you help me look for the help I think I need?
Yeah.
And start that ball rolling as well.
Absolutely. I'm going to take 30 seconds just to mention something about nutrition here, because it plays a big part in mood and mental health. So I'm going to say a couple of things. There are multiple things I could say, but I'd hog the rest of the session and it's not all about me. And I'm going to pick on a couple of things I want you to think about, my friends. One is, are you eating enough protein? And the reason I say that is that you need to give your body the tools to do the job. So we spend a lot of time in menopause thinking about the fancy latest thing, superfood you can get from Peru, or that might just change your hormones. But let's get the basics right. Let's get the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates right, because those macronutrients are really important. I mean, did you know the brain is entirely made of fat? So if you're eating a totally fat-free diet, you're not helping your brain, whether it's your cognitive function or your mood and mental health. Protein's really important, and women are pretty rubbish at getting enough protein. Make sure you're getting protein with every meal and every snack. So when I say protein, I'm thinking things like meat or fish or eggs, or lots of lovely plant proteins, soya, quinoa, nuts, seeds, lentils, chickpeas, beans. So you can find something for everyone in there that will work with every different meal. Tons of reasons to be having protein, but when we're thinking about anxiety and overwhelm, you need to be aware that the body uses the amino acids found in protein-rich foods to create key neurotransmitters that regulate things like mood, memory, focus, and concentration. So if you're not getting enough of that, then, how can your brain even begin to function regardless of what your hormones are doing? So men are great at getting protein. They want protein with every meal and they make a fuss if they don't get it. We need to be more like that and not be thinking, shoving a piece of toast around our plate or looking at some green leaves at lunchtime. Protein with every meal, every snack is going to make a huge difference. And I would also say, hate to say it, audit your caffeine intake. Caffeine's a really powerful stimulant and can really cause you to feel jittery and nervous. And our ability to process caffeine in the liver can change. You might think that, I've always been able to have coffee though, so that's not the problem. Well, yes, but the cytochrome P450 system, which is the enzyme breaking down system in the liver, the detoxification process, it changes with menopause, and what you could do before you might not be able to do now. So your cutoff point might be earlier. It might be that it's tea time now or lunchtime rather than having a coffee or a tea after dinner, which could disrupt your sleep and have you feeling quite anxious. So just sort of don't assume that what worked before always would still work now. Okay, that's more than 30 seconds, but I'm going to give you that. Also needed for muscle building, says Christine in the chat. Yes, Christine, we need it for lots of stuff. Do you want to say something about pelvic floor, Christine? Because
of course, always. Thank you for sneaking that question in. I find it very hard not to mention pelvic floor for more than 10 minutes. So it is absolutely a barrier to exercise. It can also obviously induce a lot of worry and anxiety, and it's a reason for many women to stop. Most important thing, ask for help. The first thing to try is download the Squeezy app and start doing your pelvic floor muscle exercises. If that doesn't work, don't give up. There's so many other things. Knock on your GP's door, look on the Squeezy app directory or the POGP, which is our pelvic health professional body. There's a whole directory of NHS as well as
not sure if you can see that.
Private people, and there is such strong evidence with proper pelvic floor muscle training supervised, nearly all pelvic health dysfunction like bladder issues, bowel issues, sexual dysfunction can be treated. So I think what all four of us have been saying, please ask for help. Women are such good putter-uppers and there's no medals to be won. And I think the thing about shame is so important there. When we do talks and run groups with women, by the time we start talking about wee and poo, give it 5 minutes and everyone is sharing absolutely everything, and it really does help. And we actually can have quite a lot of fun.
Definitely can.
Whatever miserable it is as symptoms, though, there's nothing funny about it, but sharing really, really does help.
Yes, and just recognizing that how many women it happens to. I mean, the statistics, which I understand are probably undercut, are at least 1 in 3 women worldwide experience leaking if they jump or run or sneeze. So chances are there's several of you struggling with it and that there are answers. So I think it's really important to get that help because it can make a difference in a very short space of time, can't it, Christine?
Oh, absolutely. And it's quite simple, but it really does work.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, right. I've had another question come in. I find high impact work very hard on my joints. How can I get my cardio fix? Libby, what can we do about cardio in yoga?
Well, yoga is not cardio. It's not exercise. It's movement. And yoga is gentle on joints because we're not jumping around. So it's a great place to start if you have achy joints or if you're worried about your joints, because there's a lot of stillness in the pose. It's good for that. As for cardio, what I will say is that a lot of times what happens in yoga, you're still in a pose, but your heart starts beating faster because in order to maintain that pose, you've got to pump blood to those muscles. So it's not running cardio. It's a different type of activation of the heart. I'm not even sure if I should call it cardio, but it does stimulate the heart. But I wouldn't say it's cardio. I wouldn't put it in that category, the yoga that we do. And I mean, a lot of times I'm sweating and my heart is beating, but I don't think that's the same as cardio. I'm not really sure.
No, but it sounds really good to me because I think if your heart's beating, that sounds like cardio. What do you think, Christine?
Yeah, I think yoga, it's beautiful. It sort of elevates the heart more than it, in terms of pure increased heart rate. But I think if impact is too much, you can build up towards it very slowly. But there's so many low impact things you can do, like lunges, squatting, which you can do, spinning. And actually, we just with 27 women did a yoga or a exercise program, and a lot of the women didn't want to do spinning, and I thought it'd be uncomfortable. But so many, once they start doing it, and it's a really nice low impact way of exercising, or low impact dance. I think the thing is just to try lots of different things, maybe look a bit silly or feel a bit silly, but once you start having fun, there are definitely a lot of cardio options that don't have to involve high impact or running.
Okay. And I think the key there is, from a psychological perspective, is joy. Find the joy of movement.
Yeah.
Find whatever works for you. Go try a million different types of things at different types of, at different speeds even. But find something that brings you joy, because then you're going to want to do it. Then you're motivated to do it because of it. So.
Yeah. Brilliant advice. Right, we're getting close to the end. So I am now going to ask each of, two of my guests. Libby's going to do her fabulous meditation, but the other two, I'd like you to give me sort of 2 sentences, so really super quick, your sort of final message on the subject that's so close to your heart, before we wrap up. But don't go away, people. People are putting final messages in there, and if you're not here, you won't win your prize, just saying. So, Jess, would you like to start with a very brief final message on your advice?
I don't think I can say anything briefly, Jackie, but
no, probably not.
Even that. Remembering that you to tune into what's going on, to tune into the thoughts you're having, to tune into the feelings and sensations in your body, to remember that you can respond to them in a way that you want to analyze them. Be your own psychologist. What's really going on here? Be curious. Remember, bring that curiosity, dampen the anxiety, and then be super kind to yourself. It sounds cheesy. To be honest, when I first had self-compassion decades ago, I was like, I'm fine, I'm okay. But it's really, really important, and more so, never more so than during menopause, because of those hormonal fluctuations. We need to be able to turn that soft tenderness towards ourselves too.
Yeah, so be kind to ourselves. I think that's absolutely great advice. Christine, what would you have to say to us all?
It definitely finds an exercise that puts a smile on your face and you can enjoy it with friends, and don't make it a punishment for what you've eaten. And I'm glad that Jess mentioned the word joy, and it is possible. Eventually you'll get hooked, and even if it's hard with some discomfort, you'll enjoy it. And also, of course, always put in the pelvic health side. If you've got any bladder and bowel issues, please don't put up with it. Go and ask for help. Help is out there.
Yeah, great advice. I'm going to say a quick something before I hand over to Libby. I'm going to say, get back to basics with your diet. All those things that your parents and grandparents told you about eating your greens, super important for magnesium. I know that there was a question about magnesium in the chat. I'm actually going to refer you to my podcast on magnesium that I've just released, because the answer to your question is in there. Make sure you're getting decent protein. Make sure you're eating good quality fat. So things like oily fish, salmon, sardines, things like flaxseed, walnuts are great sources of omega-3, so that you're really having those sort of brain-friendly foods. And before I hand over to Libby, I just want to say thank you very much to the lady who liked my hair. This is me au naturel, and it's a relatively new outing, so it's great to get the endorsement. Thank you. Libby, take us through your meditation.
It's very similar to Jess's, just slightly yogic. Anyway, so we're sitting down, but we need to have we have to be in seated mountain pose. So again, uncross your legs, feet flat on the floor, hips wedged back where the seat of the chair meets the back of the chair, and the shoulders are back and down, chest is lifted, and the hands are on your lap to start. So we're in our seated mountain pose. So let's do this meditation. Bring your hands together, the palms together, and rub them, keeping those shoulders back and down and the chest lifted. And when you have some warmth between your hands, then place one hand on your chest, on the heart, and the other hand on top of the first. I'll move my hands down because I don't want to cover my microphone. And then I invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze to a spot in front of you. And I want you to start by focusing on the hands. So start by focusing on the weight of the hands on the heart. And the weight is soothing. And then I want you to focus on the warmth of the hands. The top hand on the bottom hand, and then from the bottom hand on the heart. So focusing on the warmth of the hands. The warmth is comforting. And now I want you to focus on the beating of your heart. Your heart is the true you. Everything you hold dear is in your heart. And anytime you need soothing or comforting, this is where you come. Let's take a few moments to focus on the beating of our heart as we breathe in and out through the nose normally. Now take a deep breath in through the nose. Breathe it out. Release the hands from your chest down onto your lap and slowly open your eyes. Namaste.
That was lovely. Thank you. So everybody, we're going to move on to the prize draw in a second. What I will say though is that hang on, because just after that you'll get details of how you're able to get the recording of the event. And you're going to want the recording because you're going to want Libby's absolutely fabulous meditation and Jess's half hug, as well as all our fabulous advice that we've shared with you throughout the evening. So don't go away. But what I want to do first of all is bring up the slides of the prizes, and I'm going to scroll back because I've got details of the winners that have just popped into my chat. Hang on, just briefly lost the chat, bear with me. Where's it gone? Sorry, suddenly lost the chat. Don't know quite how that happened. Emily, can you unshare that slide and just go back to me on the screen? I think that might do it. Yes, that's done it. Thank you. I'm not quite sure why that is. Okay, so we're going to announce the slides. So I'm going to say a massive thank you, first of all, to Better You, who have donated their fabulous supplement. And I'm just trying to find, I've got the winner of Better You. So Emma Yoxall, you have won. Congratulations. We'll be in touch separately because we obviously have your contact details when you signed up. So we'll be in touch to make sure that gets sent across to you. Secondly, scrolling down again, bear with me. Chat keeps going back up and down, which is always a bit difficult. Right, okay. Skincare package 1 from Pry. So that's the lovely collagen cream moisturizer and the serum. We've got 5 winners of that. We've got Alison Sheedy, Dana Chikova, I hope I've said that right, Margaret Kellett, Karen Jo Thomas, and Samantha Jones. So congratulations to you. I hope you're happy. And then skincare package 2, which is the same collagen moisturizer plus the sleep cream. We've got Fiona Prue, Jane Stanbridge, Vivian McNiven, Rona Jones, and Monica Harris. So yay, congratulations. And again, we'll be in touch with you about that. The very fortunate winner of the lovely Super Helper Syndrome is Jill Baxter. Now, quick rider there, Jess is on in Spain at the moment, so you have to wait about a week for that to be sent to you. But we will pass I hope you're okay if we pass your details on to Jess so that we can send the book directly to you via her. And then the winner of my book, The Happy Menopause, sorry, just got so many books on my table here, The Happy Menopause, and also The Right Bite that on my shelf and I haven't picked it up. The winner of that is Siobhan O'Donovan. So congratulations, everybody. That's incredibly exciting. And all of those are going to be on their way to you. And I can see some happy people in the chat. So that's fabulous. So what I'd like to do now, before we wrap up, because it is 2015 and I promised that we'd finish on time, I'm going to pop up the slide with everybody's contact details so you can find out where to find all these brilliant women. So obviously, starting with me with my old look, I need to update my publicity photos now. So you can see where you can follow me on social media, the podcast, and also my website. Jess, we've got here her website, and if you go on there, there'll be links to all her social media, although you can also find her on everything as Jess Baker Psych. Christine, we've got the White Hart Clinic link for those of you who think you need some extra special support with pelvic health. And for those of you who want to find out more about menopause movement, we've got the website there, as well as the social media. And Libby, we've got her website and her social. And what I will say is at the moment, if you are on Instagram and you're not following Libby, go for it, because she's doing a special on heart health throughout October. And she does the most amazing reels. And I'm very jealous of how good she is at Instagram. So for all of you, that's how you reach all of us. If you want to receive a copy of the recording, all you've got to do is sign up to my newsletter. The link is there. And if you forget to make a note of that now, and or forget to copy it from the chat, then if you go back into the Eventbrite thing, it's put there right at the top as well. So you'll be able to find that. If you sign up for that, we'll be sending it out later this week. So really, all that remains is for me to say a huge thank you to Jess, Christine, and Libby. Honestly, you've been brilliant. So I'm so grateful to you for joining us. Thank you all for joining, because honestly, you've been so interactive, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the session. And I think we're going to go over and out. So thanks very much, everyone.